Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Unusual Machines, Inc. It trades on the New York Stock Exchange American under the symbol UMAC and manufactures and sells drone components and drones across a diversified brand portfolio, which includes Fat Shark, the leader in FPV, which is first-person view, ultra-low latency video goggles for drone pilots. Happy to welcome its CEO, Allan Evans. Welcome to the conference today, Allan.
Thanks, Anna. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we are going to kick it off with a little bit of an overview. Tell us a little bit about what Unusual Machines does.
Absolutely. And I might tell you also a little bit about what we don't do.
Okay.
Drones is a word people now use for robots, sometimes just flying robots. And there's a whole bunch of sizes, like Joby or some of the others are trying to replace helicopters. There's some of the ones that look like airplanes, all the way down. We build small ones. And because of that, we have an e-commerce store. We sell mostly to consumers and mostly drone parts. So to the people that would go, do aftermarket support on a car and take to the racetrack, there's this same group of awesome enthusiasts in drones that do it and race or fly freestyle or whatever. And last year we did like 15,000 motors. So we're looking to expand to sell drones to the Defense Department and also components to more manufacturers. I also have some videos that highlight, I think, what FPV is as first-person view and some of the ways they're used so people maybe understand that it's not the same as wedding photography.
Great. That would be interesting. I'd like to see that myself.
Okay, so we'll get into it, and I'll just talk over these videos. They're each about 30 seconds. We'll go through the 4 segments and ask questions as we go. And please tell me if it's working. So we're going to start with drone racing. This is footage from Drone Racing League, which a lot of people might have seen on ESPN. These are super agile drones. These are the ones that most of our folks use. They go up to 100 miles an hour. If you look, drone racing was the first driver of growth as a community event. Like people go almost like to the bowling league and as a team sort of competitive sport. And Drone Racing League was just recently purchased for $250 million, for instance. So this is one segment. Are there any questions about that segment before we get into sort of the next segment? I think that one's pretty, like whenever we build machines, we like to race them. I feel like that one's pretty self-explanatory.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Keep going.
Okay, the next one is freestyle. This is where Rotor Riot, our store brand, and a lot of our customers are particularly focused. And what this is flying for fun. Almost, like getting your pilot's license, but going out, doing some things, flying through buildings or whatever. And this video is taken at the location where we do our annual event, Rotor Riot Rampage, where hundreds of people get together to come out to fly, in a very FAA approved sort of way. And this is just flying for the joy of flying. And at the same time, people are wearing headsets and going in and doing it. So that's sort of the one people don't understand is freestyle, which is just getting out there to have a good time. Do you have any questions about that?
Not so far. I'm breaking this down. Let's see what else you got.
No problem. So this next video starts to get into professional application. Most videos, like Michael Bay movies or the Justin Bieber music videos, a lot of them are shot with these same FPV drones, just bigger, carrying cameras. So we're going to go through what's called cinema, and this is a professional version of the same thing. And these are all movie shots done with the same sort of FPV technology, drones, and piloting skill. If you watch movies and you fly drones very often now, you'll see a whole lot of what are drone shots in commercials or in videos. And they make it really exciting, but also have dramatically lowered the cost basis for Hollywood to get some really cool shots. And it's really taken off in the last 5 years in particular. So that's the first sort of professional application that people aren't aware of. Any questions about that?
No, we have some questions coming in, but I want you to complete this with the last form of drones that you're talking about today. We'll go in.
So the newest one, and I think the one that is emergent, is the conflict in Ukraine. And this is some video from that, has started to create a defense application where these same mobile drones with the same controls, and that's an FPV headset, are used almost like mortar rounds now or artillery, and this has completely changed warfare. This particular use case, which is new, has driven a lot of the legislation, a lot of the changes, and I think a lot of the potential for the marketplace from where we see it as a U.S. manufacturer versus an overseas manufacturer. And these are all, this is an FPV shot, for instance, of a pilot. You can even see the props in it as they go in for hitting a target. And this is sort of the newest use case that wasn't really around before. And I think a driver of a lot of the market potential. So those are the 4 segments that we primarily serve as a company.
So when you say you serve as a company, are you providing the drones, or exactly how are you integrated into these 4 uses of the drones that we know today?
Great question. Rotor Riot, our e-commerce marketplace, for the first 3, for racers, for freestyle pilots, for cinema pilots, we sell either fully built drones or we sell pieces that they use to build their own drones. We're doing about $5 million a year in revenue through that channel. We're seeing 20 to 30% year over year growth. That's all of the consumer segment. The defense segment is just starting. You saw the pickup in Ukraine. They've been buying mostly out of China. But if you look at the legislation in the US, the American Securities Drone Act, some of the very recent stuff that you're seeing, if you're following the news, this is all driven by the US government just starting to recognize the military implications of these small drones, but also the importance of the supply chain for them. If we can't get motors, let's say, for these small drones, we could have the best drones in the world, but it'd be like having the best guns in the world and no bullets. And that's where we're seeing a lot of interest in not only buying and selling the finished products, but also building out the supply chain where we're really well positioned to succeed.
Now, these look like smaller drones. Do you need a license to fly these for all 4 of the breakdowns?
Some of them, no. There are different places you can go. They are regulated by the FAA and other things, so there are different classifications. If you want to fly professionally, so for instance, if you want to go fly for a Michael Bay movie, then you would need a Part 107 license. It is amazing, actually. The FAA has been very, very good about segmenting it. And for everyone who came to our Rotor Riot Rampage event in May, we got an FAA waiver for the whole place for the whole time, for instance. So they are, most people think government, oh, they only care about big companies. But the FAA in particular has been extremely responsive and very, very open to this segment of consumer. It's been great. We work closely with them and have a lot of respect.
And Christian asks, now that the company is growing, what do you see as the percentage breakdown for military versus civilian applications and sales of your drones with accompanying software and hardware?
So far to date, it's been pretty much 100% commercial. We're a US manufacturer and they're kicking out China. So we see the growth, the real growth opportunity coming from defense. Whether it's defense to build motors for a company like Teal or Skydio because they don't want them to come from China, or finished drones for FPV, we think the next 2 years of growth is going to be driven by US government spending from the defense sector. And after that, from enterprise. So drone delivery, these other commercial applications where they want to have trusted supply chains and trusted suppliers. So the next 2 years, I think we'll go from 100% consumer to probably 60 to 70% defense, US related, and then ultimately into enterprise.
And Thelma wants you to break it down. Do your drones require special licensing?
For certain applications, yes. So anytime you're going to fly a drone professionally, you need a Part 107 license. Some of our drones are otherwise below the weight limit. So my favorite, which, because I like to fly for fun once in a while, are what are called micro drones. They're like these little ones you can put in your pocket, and they're great to fly around your house. And you know, you feel like a giant in an airship flying underneath tables and stuff. So no, those don't require licensing, but require the same skills that it takes to fly cinema for a movie.
And so where do people get training to fly these drones? You obviously need some training. Do you work with organizations that provide that? Do you provide training?
We find the best way to do it. We have a whole bunch of videos on our Rotor Riot channel, but we also recommend just getting a radio, And there's a simulator. There are a couple simulators we partner with, in particular Liftoff, does a really good job of teaching you the skills, and then just get a small drone and go fly it. And you can very quickly develop skill sets. But we have even some videos of pilots that just did simulator time and then went and did some very complicated maneuvers with a drone after just a little bit of flight time.
And how are you addressing ethical concerns surrounding drone surveillance, including the FAA? Maria says it's being cooperative, however, is violating any laws or policies being enforced?
That's a very interesting question. That's maybe less associated with what we're doing. We're not the same as the Chinese drones or the other floaty camera drones. These are much more to go fly in sport mode. And so any recordings that occur are just from the pilots themselves. And the obligation is then on the individual, because we don't do any corporate data collection and nothing comes back to the company.
So there's no video necessarily on the drones?
No, there's a video feed back to the pilot or they would crash, but there's no video component or information that's then sent to a server on our end. It's all just the individual. So it's the same as what are the privacy concerns if you're using your cell phone camera?
Okay.
You know, well, I think it's very similar. It's on the individual to make those choices.
And Grady wants to know, are you making any money off of these events, or are you simply selling the drones and parts for a profit? How does that work?
We do the events to support the community. We do a lot of it to support the community. So we try to be break even. We charge for it because they cost money. Our primary revenue comes from selling drone parts through the store. And everything else is just to be sure that we facilitate our customers and sort of celebrate the community with them.
And if you can elaborate on that, Calvin wants you to talk about your current and future revenue verticals and margins. How many different avenues do you have?
We see three right now. We're 100% consumer through our e-commerce store. That's about a 30% margin. That's where we plan on holding it. We've seen that grow 20 to 30% year over year. Defense is the one we're focused on right now, because if you pay attention to government procurement cycles, almost all the money for these types of things gets allocated in July, August, and September because of government fiscal years. So if you're going to see news from us in this segment, the next 3 months are going to be a lot of news. And after that, where we're having discussions, are enterprise. And these are for organizations that'll start in defense that have country of origin requirements that need stuff that's not made in China. And we think once you have a trusted supplier, you tend not to change as you go forward. I like to joke that General Motors doesn't make tires, Goodyear does. Right. So we see ourselves more as the Goodyear for some of the bigger drone companies out there.
That's a good reference. Talk a little bit about the conflict in Ukraine. How is that changing the market?
Changed it massively. Conflict is terrible. We'd all prefer not war. What the Ukrainians did is they figured out how to create major cost asymmetry. They developed air dominance with an $800 drone versus a multi-million-dollar fighter. That's allowed them to, I think, do incredible things with less resources than the Russian army has. And that has changed how the rest of the world is viewing drones in conflict. The change is as dramatic as maybe the introduction of the jet at the end of World War II. If you even notice, growing up, we saw all these helicopter videos in the Middle East, right? Have you seen any helicopter videos out of the conflict in Ukraine? That's the level, right? That's the level of paradigm shift this has already created in terms of air power. And if you look, I think our legislation's a little more forward thinking now. They saw the CHIPS Act after the CHIPS ban and the need for the infrastructure there. And drones are following the same thing. They're looking at banning Chinese drones and really supporting not just the end product, but the domestic ecosystem to be able to build that end product in case we're in a conflict.
And there's that emerging legislation that you're talking about. How does the blue UAS list come into play here?
The blue UAS list is the Department of Defense, through the Defense Innovations Unit's certification of NDAA compliant, which is the government purchase process. What it does, and what we're trying to do, is get parts on that list because they go in and audit it. So if you think, you remember in the early days of organic, anybody could put it on the box.
Mm-hmm.
This is the actual certification body to say, yes, this is defense eligible or government eligible for purchase. And it's the standard that's been around the longest. There's another one through the AUBSI that we're also working with that is a commercial standard. And those are the two that are really going to drive what people can go buy, sort of like certified organic. If it's not there, then if you put it on the box, you're kind of full of BS.
So the made in America is a very important aspect of these drones.
Not just made in America, but also safe to use for other American companies. So we make all our stuff, all our final productions done in Orlando, Florida. It's where our facilities are. But we're also working very hard to be sure that components, pieces, everything match, what the government's setting out to do to secure our supply chains.
Now, Harry wants you to talk a little bit more about the military possibilities. Are those with your current drones? Are you going to need to launch new products? Do you have any launches you're excited about?
We are actually extremely excited about our first product, which is a flight controller, which is fully made in the USA, which we plan on launching in early July. We're hoping for July 4th for patriotic reasons. We don't expect to need new products, but what there's FMS, foreign military sales, which when we give money to Ukraine, we actually give it to sort of the American Costco with Uncle Sam bucks where they can go in and buy, and they can only buy stuff on the blue list. So we're working on getting not just our parts, but some drones that we make with minor modifications on the blue list so that they can go use the Uncle Sam bucks to buy them. Parts are more important than finished products because they do a wonderful job of building and configuring their own drones. So we think this flight controller that we're going to launch in a month is the first product that could really take off. And the market potential is blows my mind. I can't wrap my head around it. Ukraine has said they want to build 1 million drones. Our flight controller is going to be probably $100 to $120. That times 1 million a year is, a number that would transform our company into a major enterprise provider. That's really what that potential marketplace looks like. I would say highly uncertain, but there's an overwhelming amount of demand and an interest to diversify away from everything they're purchasing from China.
Sure. My goodness. Clarence wants to know, is there any proprietary technology in these products?
A little bit, not much. Really, there's manufacturing has its own sort of challenge set where if you're there first and you're big and you do the right things and you maintain really high quality, people gravitate toward you. And then it's sort of the recipes of how you do that. And that's really what we're focused on, is that sort of quality driver.
And Lou Sutton asks, is there recurring revenue you receive after the sale?
Right now, no. We deliver a high quality product and our customers come back to us when they want more. One of the things about these more agile drones is they crash a lot. Or if you look at the conflict, they're mostly one-time use. They're designed to crash. And if somebody puts a payload on them, blow up. And in that way, we keep selling into it. It looks more like a consumable than it does maybe a commodity commercial electronic.
And Francisco wants to know a little bit more about your sales team and what's your growth strategy?
Most of our sales team is focused on our e-commerce platform, and they've been doing everything necessary to continue to facilitate 20 to 30% growth there. So I would say our core business is doing a great job. I personally was the COO at Teal Drones previously, which was doing a lot of defense work. So myself and our COO are really the ones leading our defense sales efforts. And we've gone out and met with defense customers, understood their needs. Several of our senior team members have been to Ukraine, have direct relationships with the manufacturers over there, understand the use case and the requirements for defense. And so that initiative right now is being driven by senior level employees. And once we find traction or find where we fit, we're very open to then hiring the right people to continue that forward.
Any potential to go to other parts of the world where there is also conflict?
Most of what we're doing right now is as a sub to primes. So if Teal Drones was going to the Middle East or to South America, we're happy to work with them as a partner to provide product, but at a low cost for the different places that they're going. Same with any other prime. And in that way, we maintain this very low cost for the American taxpayer without taking on the addition of also being a defense contractor by partnering with the people that are really going to drive those efforts.
And Lindsay wants to know, do you sell under different brand names?
We sell a whole bunch of different brands. So Rotor Riot is our e-commerce channel, but we have Hype Train motors or Fat Shark goggles or fuel cell battery banks. So we don't white label too much. We're starting to explore that. That's part of the new initiative for some of the defense otherwise. But to date, nope, we just build our own brands, and we'll also carry other manufacturers' brands through our channel.
And Lewis wants to know, where can he see the products? Is there web links to that? Is there a way to see them?
www.rotorriot.com. If you go there, you can see everything that's available. You can find out where people might be in your area or what's going on. That's your absolute best bet. And there's plenty of amazing videos. If you go to Rotor Riot's YouTube page, there's been a new video every week for, I think, 8 years in a row. The team there is very consistent and puts out this really great content.
Wonderful. And Gerard wants you to get a bit more detailed on your push product you're going to launch in July. How exactly will that be game changing?
It'll be the first flight controller made in the USA. Everything else for FPV has been made in China. So we think there are domestic customers, people in the USA who want to support onshoring these types of technologies. It's a really high quality product. It's tested with our brand. We also see anybody doing sensitive applications who don't want to buy flight computers from China using this. And at the same time, it's the highest end drop-in replacement for the activities people are engaging in. And so it doesn't require a full change to everything you're doing. It's, we're really going to see, but it's the first product that the Defense Department can purchase for what they're doing. It's the first one that can be available to use these Uncle Sam bucks in Ukraine. And we think it will set the tone as we get on the Blue UAS list and prove we can do it for where the company can go over the next couple of years in an enterprise way. We're pretty excited about it.
Wonderful. Well, it makes me a little bit less hesitant and fearful of the drones that will soon be flying over all of our homes.
That's the goal. I mean, when you look, there's quality assurance in manufacturing. I joke, I have analogies. I think that way. You've probably made cookies before. And you can make 12 pretty good cookies, but scaling it up is to go to, 12,000. That's from 1 to 1,000. And it's really hard to make 12,000 cookies without burning any. You got to move to a new kitchen, all those sorts of things. And yet we go buy these products every day and we expect the quality to be there. Same with what we're building and how we implement manufacturing practices, so that if a drone is delivering you a burrito, you don't want it to crash and, in the street and hit a car. The reliability in these components, along with the price, is super important. And that's where manufacturing, I think, is often overlooked. And we're excited to be overlooked and hopefully just do a good job and never be noticed.
Right. Well, what closing remarks do you have for our viewers today, Allan?
Really appreciate your time. I think if you're investing in drones right now, in the US, companies like ours are sensitive to the government procurement cycle. We are right before you're going to see all the government contracts hit between here and the end of September. So now is a really good time, if you believe in this emerging market, which I think is what this conference is, to say, okay, I know news is coming. This is a great entry point, not just for us, but for the other drone companies that are looking to do defense work. And then I think long term, if you believe in drones, we're trying to be a service provider to the entire industry. Sort of, if the tide goes up, all boats go up. Well, we want to be the tide rather than the individual boats. And we think there's a really good both short-term and long-term opportunity for investment right now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us on this preliminary presentation on our conference. And we would love to follow you along on your journey and stay with us with some updates.
Absolutely. Anna, I really appreciate your time, and I hope you have the best day.
Thank you, Allan. You too. Thanks for joining us. And everyone, thank you for watching. We'll be right back.